Everyone. I'm HelloChaz, and today I'm going to be doing a quick presentation on optimizing removal symbols, optimizing removal tokens. Either way, you know what? We're live. It's going to be removal tokens. So we got to get those removal tokens to go to work for us. And I wasn't familiar with the maths. It turns out, after a couple days of investigation, it was a little more complicated than I thought. But we got some answers. So you know what? We got it done. We get to do a quick little presentation. And then we get to do some more gameplay. So let's go. So quick background. Actually, not a lot of background on here. Just FYI, all of my guides are generally oriented around advanced players that are already familiar with the Leftfield Landlord symbols, items, and concepts. I've made a video about the fundamentals. I don't think it's actually that necessary to watch for the context of this topic, because actually I had to learn some things that were not actually in the original fundamentals presentation, such as how do spins work? Roughly the algorithm for determining this is distribute the symbols that are in the inventory evenly between the 5 rails and spin. And then once the spin gets locked into place, when there's going to be any visible empties that are on the board, we'll try to get substituted for invisible symbols. And by invisible symbols, I mean the symbols that are off of the board. So these will try to pull symbols that are not shown in the initial loadout and try to pull those onto the board. The result of this is there's a lower % chance to roll empties than a uniform random distribution if you're just to distribute symbols evenly between 5 rails and spin. So roughly, this is sort of like a sort of visual demonstration of what the algorithm is doing. So you can imagine these are the 5 reels, the 5 vertical reels in the game, and so these 5 reels spin, and they lock into place at a diagonal offset, and then if this symbol is empty, it will then look at the symbol that's off the board and try to swap that in. And the same thing for, and then if this symbol isn't empty, it will like iterate through the symbols going downwards. If this symbol is empty, then it'll try to swap out. If this symbol is empty, try to swap out, etc. And then it repeats this process for the other 4 reels. And so, as it turns out, this introduces a slight bias where these 5 symbols are less likely to have empties in them than, for example, other parts of the reel. You know, if we take the opposite side, this 136 versus the 70, the last symbol checked on the reel versus the first symbol checked on the reel. So there is there's a pretty sizable difference here. Now, does this affect gameplay? Not particularly. This is meaningful for if you're, for example, trying to write your own simulation code for doing the spins, as people have done, as you'll see later in the presentation. This is a very important offset to have for any sort of calculations with, for example, crabs. Probably crabs are the biggest offender here in terms of things where this diagonal offset matters. But also, things like suns and flowers, anything that's trying to do any adjacency calculations. It's very important to have this diagonal offset in mind in addition to having this algorithm. I said there was some simulation code floating around. So credit to Isaac and Aditu for providing this to me. So I ran 10 million simulations for each of these cases where there's 15 symbols in inventory. which means that there's 10 empties, by the way. And so how many of these 15 symbols make it onto the board? About 14.7 every spin. And by the way, this is false precision because of the 10 million simulation. So probably don't trust like the last, 4 numbers or so, the 4 decimal places here. I'm pretty confident with this 717, but 4071, etc. This is fake. This is fake precision. There'd have to be a lot more than 10 million simulations to get more. But for the purposes of doing maths, in order to optimize removal tokens, in order to do math on live during a game, these I would consider to be good enough. And adding the extra decimal places is it's so insignificant. It's not going to hurt anybody, in my opinion. But we'll just put them there. So in case anybody wants to do further than 10 million simulations, then maybe we can compare these decimal places and see how accurate they are. Either way, they are what they are. And so also, fun fact is that 24 symbols would technically have one empty, but it will always get substituted off the board because of how the algorithm works. So it should always be 20 here. So that we max out at 24 symbols. So is it worth adding the 25th symbol? It actually isn't. It literally isn't. It doesn't improve the average symbols that show up on the board. So it's just sort of an extraneous symbol. So that's the big blob of the table in terms of average symbols on board. So now we get to the hardcore maths. But before we get to the hardcore maths, let's have a brief interlude where we have to thank Kami McComrade for providing us these removal tokens to use in Luck Be a Landlord. Now, I have to tell you, this is very much based in reality. Kami McComrade has a lot of removal tokens to use, and I guess Kami McComrade has some extras to give out to us, which is very, very generous of them. So, we have some examples of Kami McComrade using removal tokens here. We have another example, some organized violence removal token usage here. And I guess a little bit more contemporary usage of removal token. The internet has caused a great need to use increasing amounts of removal tokens. So, I guess that means that now that Luck Be a Landlord is coming out this year, then, it means that there's plenty of removal tokens for us to use against our evil capitalistic landlord, eh? So, back to the big massive table, and then we get into the systems of equations, right? This is roughly this how we're going to describe using the removal token and determine like where the break-even value is. So let's say that the token that we're removing gives 1 per spin, right? So if we have the average value of our symbols per spin, and then we have our average value of symbols per spin with the additional 1 cost symbol that we're removing. Well, we're going to have 2 different densities. One for the density of the inventory with the symbol removed, and 1 density with the symbol before it's removed. And then also the average value of the symbols is going to go from the average value after the symbol is removed to we just add the 1 symbol. So instead of AV, it's AV times n plus 1. 1 is the value of the symbol, and then we divide that back by n plus 1. So this is how we roll in the value of the symbol back into the average value. And we can do this calculation for all of the different densities that are provided, and these are directly referencing this table. And since we're solving for average value, we've substituted average value for x. And in order to solve for x, I could simplify this equation further, but I decided to simplify this equation by copy-pasting it into Wolfram alpha. So if you're looking for a slightly more simplified equation from here, sorry, I didn't end up doing it any further. I just let the computer take over from here. But we can get some useful answers from plugging these numbers in and solving for x. If we're looking to remove the 24th symbol and go to 23, then the average value of the symbols in our inventory has to be 1.25 after we've removed our value 1 symbol. 23 to 22, 1.56, 22 to 21, 1.97, 21 to 20, 2.49, 20 to 19, 3.18. And then from 19 to 18, it's 4.09. And this is borderline irrelevant for 12 rent. So as a reminder, if we have 18 symbols, then we expect about 17.19 symbols to appear on the board. And at 4.09 each, as an average for 17 symbols, we expect that to be roughly the amount needed to pay the final payment, particularly given that there are items off of the board that are also generating value per spin for us. That is causing the amount that is lowering the value per symbol that is needed to clear the 12th payment. So I didn't do any math for 18 to 17 because 18 to 17 is very relevant for 12 rent. And this is the value from 19 to 18. So surprisingly, at least for me, it is still beneficial to go below 20 symbols in order to optimize return. Now, in practice, going below 20 symbols is can be challenging in order to balance between having enough symbols early on to pay rent and then slowly trying to remove as many low value symbols as possible. But of course, more symbols adding more symbols to the deck in many cases is valuable to continue paying rent. But sort of what this math is demonstrating is moving down the scale, at least in terms of removing one value symbols. Again, we're talking about symbols that are value 1. We're talking about, pearls without polishing rag, cats without pizza the cat. We're talking about flowers without bee, rain, or sun, or farmer. Just the sort of generic, rabbit without any items. All of these symbols that aren't getting any sort of extraneous buffs. So on the other hand, there is going to be cases where we've removed all of those symbols, or we have symbols that are more valuable than 1 to remove. And so we do want to generalize this. And it turns out actually we have a pretty good out. And how this works is because this one value right here isn't a function of the average value that we're also solving for. So we have a linear relationship between the average value here and the value of the symbol that we're removing. And so how that math works out is if the new average is greater than 1.25 times the value of the removed symbol, right? So previously we had just locked it to 1. But if it's any higher, then as long as the new average is, the value of the removed symbol times 1.25, then we're good to go. And that just flows downward from there. So turns out it's not as difficult to generalize the equation as I had feared. And so we just have some really nice outcomes right here. I think hopefully very straightforward to use in game. And so I guess I'm gonna have to try it out and see how it goes. So otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I learned something. I learned a lot of things from doing this, and there is some information here that is hard to impossible to find anywhere else. So I hope you found it useful for yourself as well. So, anyways, till you decide to watch any of my later videos or find me live on Twitch, I hope you have a good one, and till next time.